And we are live with two legends in the hypnosis world, Rich Guzzi and Chase Hughes. I'm going to start off with Rich because Chase has been on the channel before, and I'd love to introduce people to Rich. Tell us about yourself. You're a comedy hypnotist, but really more comedian than a hypnotist.
Yes, I'm a comedian that does hypnosis, not a hypnotist that does comedy. That's kind of like my claim to fame. But yeah, I've been at it 30 years. And it started off where I would just, bring people from the audience on stage, some volunteers, hypnotize them, make them do some wacky stuff, and everybody laughed. And it became kind of like a cult show where people just kept coming back every time I would come to their city. And it really built up. And then one time I'm doing a show, El Paso, Texas, a big military town. And I do the show like we always do. We go out to eat after the show like we always do. And then all of a sudden, my girlfriend, who's my assistant, also, she gets this email. She's my husband was on your show tonight. He just came back, from the military, from overseas. And he can't sleep in the same bed with me because he has these nightmares and he's always scared he might attack in the middle of the night. But he was very different on the way home tonight. He was very, very different. And he slept in the bed with me for the first time in 3 years. And I got my husband back and my kids got their dad back. And that's when I knew that there was something more to the show than just doing the funny show. I just thought I was a comedian. So I do some funny stuff. And then I realized, there's something more to this. And then it turns out there's more situations just like that all over the place where it was affecting people in a very positive way. So I started adding more and more of the positivity into the show, where I started doing this good energy affirmation at the end of the show, added more of the self-help aspect of the show. And next thing you know, it really blew up where it was selling out like every night because people come into the show for like their therapy fix. It was funny because they come to see a comedy show, but then they were coming also to see, their lives get better. The people just were like losing weight, quitting smoking. I started working with a lot of military guys, a lot of military folks that were coming back and they needed some help. And we started doing that, and it worked out very well.
Well, and I definitely want to get into the self-help and the positive aspect because with Chase, I'll be honest, we kind of delve often into the darkness and the ellipsis behavior and manipulation of mind control, which of course I'm fascinated with. But I do want to cover one more story. I thought it was very interesting. I understand you backed into the hypnosis show accidentally because you kind of volunteered for something.
Yes, I did. I know this is interesting. So I'm doing Rascals Comedy Club in Ocean Township, New Jersey, which at the time was one of the biggest clubs in the country. I mean, all the big players played there. I mean, Rodney Dangerfield, Andre Dice Clay, Damon Wayans. So this was a big deal. So I'm working the club, and I walk in. It was started on a Wednesday, and club manager was Sandy DePerna. And we were friends. She says, "Hey, did you hear Otto and George on the radio this morning?" I said, "Actually, I did." And Otto and George was like this dirty puppet act. It was this real mean puppet, and he would be really nasty. And it was hilarious because the puppet could get away with more than an actual person saying that. So what happens is I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, the owner of Rascals went crazy." He said, "Otto and George is fired. Never go work Rascals ever again." Also, his managers with him, fire all Joe Miller's acts. Can't work with Rascals ever again. So I had to fire everybody. I even had to fire poor Denny Moore, the hypnotist. So I had to find another hypnotist. I don't even know why. I think it was just goofing around. I said, "Well, I could do the hypnotizing show for you." She goes, "You could do the hypnotizing show?" I says, "Yeah." I do this I used to do the psychic guy. Remember John Edwards, the psychic guy?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So he was a friend of mine because I used to have a radio show on Long Island. He used to come on our show. He was our best guest. So I used to do this bit about this goofy like psychic guy on the stage. I said, "Yeah, I do the psychic. The hypnotizer guy's the same thing." She goes, "Oh, okay." Takes me in the back, opens the book up. It was like 3 times the money I would normally make. So I said, "Oh yeah, I'll take the gig." I remember driving home that night saying, "Well, better learn how to do the hypnotizing show." I knew nothing about hypnosis, and I'm like, "Man, this is crazy." I went and took this 2-day hypnosis class, and I learned nothing. And I'm like, "Man, I'm in big trouble. I'm going to look like an idiot." So I'm doing all this stuff. I'm reading the books. I'm doing all the stuff they taught me in the class. And next thing you know, I'm like, I got to do a practice show, but because I got to put it all together.
Mhm.
So it's got to be in a place where if nobody sees it, it's no whole, nobody can, like, never work in Muskegon, Michigan ever again, that type of situation. So it was actually Muskegon, Michigan, where I did my first hypnosis show. I put it all together and actually worked the first night I did it. So actually what the guys taught me how to do actually worked. I'm like, look at this. I did a second practice show in Altoona, Pennsylvania. So I had 2 under my belt. So now Rascals comes up. I only had 6 weeks to prepare, by the way, too. From the time I took the gig to the time I had to do the show was 6 weeks.
Mm.
With now, in retrospect, realizing that I'm a professional, that was the stupidest thing I've ever done in my entire life, because this should have never happened, should have never worked. So I show up the first night at Rascals, packed house. Everybody loves the Hypnotizing show. And who shows up? Denny Moore and his manager the first night.
Mm.
So I'm like, oh boy, look at this. All right. So now I'm kind of nervous. I'm never nervous on stage, but now I'm nervous because these guys are professionals. I'm an idiot. I don't know anything about, what do I know about doing a hypnosis show? So here's the plan. I'm going to bring 20 people on stage. However many people get hypnotized, that's going to be the show. All right, good. I'm going to do like 15 minutes of my best stand-up material up front. Everybody's going to be laughing. They have a good time. All right, that's the plan. I go on stage. I do 15 minutes of material. Everybody's laughing. It's a good time. Hey, you guys want to do hypnotizing? Yeah, come on the stage. I got people seats. I mean, there's seats everywhere. I don't know. I got 20 chairs all over the building.
Mm.
I do the induction. 4 people get knocked out really hard.
Oh, nice.
And that's the show. Halfway through the show, the other guys left. They figured he's got it. Because they think, listen, it was a smart move. They figured, I'm going to go belly up. They're going to save the day, get their gig back. All right.
Sure.
That's what I figured was going to happen. But that didn't happen. So my confidence grew. I did 7 shows that week. And she hands me a check. And I look at this check. It's like I said, 3 times the money I would normally make. I'm like, oh, man, look at this. Right? I went home. Right. I deposited the check on Monday. And I figured I dodged a bullet. That was it. But here's the weird thing that happened. I get a phone call. Hey, I heard you do the Hypnotizing show. Because other comedy clubs heard about it because Rascals is such a big, prestigious venue. I'm like, yeah. Hey, well, you want to do our club? I'm like, all right, I went from being like an older comic to being like a young hypnotist.
Mm.
There was kind of a need for it. And next thing you know, I just figured I was never going to stop doing comedy. I was just do a couple of shows here and there. But then I fell to the dark side, because the money kept getting escalating. Like, why am I going to take like a $500, $1,000, comedy gig? I could take a $3,000 hypnosis gig. And next thing you know, it kept on going bigger and bigger. And then that was it. I stopped doing comedy and was only doing hypnosis shows. And then, and then from that point, it just translated into then become the inspirational hypnosis show. And now here we are 30 years later, still doing it.
Very cool. Now we're getting into the darkness, so we'll turn to Chase. Now, Chase has a full military career, and I actually have the rare honor, I guess, of being his final interview before leaving the military.
That's correct.
So that
you are
kind of puts me in a weird place in time on that. Now, Chase, you're not just a hypnotist. You're kind of all over the place with the body language, behavioral analysis, things like that. I know hypnosis runs really strong through there, and I feel like it's kind of a thread with you, tying the other pieces together. Is that fair?
Yeah, I definitely say that for sure.
Okay, now I want to know, though, how did you meet Rich?
All right, I'll make it a quick story, but it's a good one. So I'd never seen a stage show, except for maybe just some clips on YouTube and stuff. And in my mind, it was total BS. The people are faking it. They're playing along. They're not really hypnotized. I did hypnosis in some pretty adverse conditions. And I'm thinking there's no way that stuff is real. And then one night my girlfriend's looking on Facebook. She says, hey, there's a comedy hypnosis show right here in Virginia Beach. We should go down there. And I was like, oh, that stuff's BS. That's a bunch of crap. She's like, well, you're a behavior profiler. You go, and then we'll see if it's all fake. I said, all right, whatever. I'll go. So we paid the ticket, went in there, and it saw Rich run the house, and it was real. Like, I was absolutely surprised to see those people in a real trance. It's not just a social, because I assume from a psychology perspective, there's a sociological pressure on those people to play along, to do what other people are doing. And to my surprise, I think everybody there was deeply entranced. And I think Rich separated himself big time when he brought the credibility back to hypnosis at the end. When he said, this isn't just all about comedy. This has the power to if it has the power to make you act like an idiot, it can also possess the power to make you think differently, behave differently, feel more confident, and live your life a little bit better. We got one shot. Let's just make it a good one. So Rich brings everyone in the entire room under hypnosis, not just these people up on stage. Everyone in the room goes under. And Rich spent 5, 10, 15 minutes just doing that with people and just giving people these just wonderful gifts to take home. So not only do they get a wonderful night, they rode in the car all the way home with Rich's voice in their head, and it was a positive voice. And that's what I really liked. And I shot him an email. I said, "Hey, Rich, I'm a mind control expert." Which sounds like bull crap. If someone said that to me and I didn't know, but I said, "Hey, you did a great job." I was astonished at the show. And then, Rich and I have been pretty good friends ever since. Very good friends.
Well, that's awesome. And then actually, when you were talking about, how hypnosis can be misused, or it was implied, things like that. When I first talked to Rich, you brought up something I thought was profound, and I'd love to have both of you go into it. But essentially, you were telling me how, and I think Christina Lennon talks about it a bit too, about anxiety being a form of hypnosis in a way, or, like getting tripped into a goofy rhythm within your own head. But you had mentioned that at different points in our life, we have self-hypnotized and caused our own neuroses. And I think I threw out there and said, could the fetish be called that? And you said, absolutely.
No question.
You want to go into that?
Yeah. I call it, like spontaneous accidental waking hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening is you're not really formally hypnotized. All right, so the reason why I think Chase was impressed with the show was the fact that, and I teach all my students, all my hypnosis students, here's how when you do a hypnosis, you want to drive them deep into hypnosis where like level 6. There's 6 levels. So 1's very light, 6 is very deep. All right, 6 is where you'll actually hallucinate negative things, which is very difficult. So for a show, I tell them the most important thing above everything else, even getting them to laugh hard, all right, is for the audience to believe that hypnosis is real. You have to give them the wow factor, because if you don't, the general public at large, their thought of hypnosis is like this zombie-like effect. All right. Mm-hmm. They don't realize that you could be a level 1 or 2 and still quit smoking, lose weight, reduce stress. They don't understand that. They just expect you to be seeing like zombies on stage. So we have to give them the zombies. So I develop techniques to drive every subject into level 6. So when you see them doing their thing, they have like a hypnotic mask on, and you can tell it's very glaring, because when they come out of hypnosis, you can see the lights turn back on. Where a person who's like, say, level 1 or 2, they almost look awake and hey, is that guy fake or is that guy real? He's really hypnotized, but he's not good enough for a show. All right. So we want to drive the subjects super, super deep. And that's the basis behind all of it, is getting them super, super deep. So I got off on a tangent. What was the initial question?
It was about the spontaneous hypnosis.
Right. Yes. So the spontaneous waking hypnosis.
That's it.
That can be a very light level, and it can happen where you could be watching a television show, right? And your wife comes in and says, "Hey, what are you doing sitting in the dark?" Boom, and she opens the blinds, and a flash of light comes through the window, and all of a sudden something happens on TV. And all of a sudden you have a problem with gunfire or shots or somebody saying a word. It becomes like instantly anchored in, and now you have a phobia. All right, good or bad. It could be either or. It doesn't make a difference. It can happen that quickly, and it becomes an instant anchor. And when you're a kid, all right, like 7 years old and less, it's really predominant. It can happen, and very easily, because kids can go into hypnosis super easy. And all those little things can happen. And all of a sudden, those are the things that shape the rest of your life. I mean, we're almost all like 7-year-olds anyway. We just have an adult body now. We think.
Is that like imaginary friends as a kid, that the imagination to such a degree to
it could, yeah, it's like, remember in acting class, they used to teach us, watch kids play, because a kid can have like, this pen, and all of a sudden the pen is like, oh, it's a rocket ship. And the way the kid can do it is, and they're so into it. All right. And that's what they taught us in acting class. And you're imagining, you're making believe, you're hallucinating almost, and you become an amazing actor. And kids can do it very simply, but that instantaneous hypnosis can just boom, stick in there. And all of a sudden now, to get it out, you would actually need an actual hypnotic induction to juggle that around, because it could be a false belief, be something that's not real.
Okay. Well, I got a question in here from the chat, and I definitely want to continue on this line, but I think it's interesting because I watch a lot of your YouTube videos, and you seem to go into this as part of the hypnosis as well, especially with morning shows. But the question is, does laughing hysterically predispose the people to go under hypnosis easier? Is laughing them putting them in that state of mind? Okay,
so let me explain what that is. All right. We don't have a lot of time on a television show or a radio show. And even on even in a comedy show, even though I have an hour and a half, I want to give them the best bang for their buck as possible.
Sure.
So what I'll do is I'll use a very rapid induction, which is a culmination of a lot of different inductions happening simultaneously. And then I'll use the bits, the routines, as a fractionation method. So in this particular case, I'll use laughing because I want to give them a positive experience. So once I drive them into hypnosis, then I'll use a deepening technique immediately after it. So everything happens within 15 seconds. Once I put them down, I'll do like a physical move, which is an arm. I'll hover my right hand over their right wrist, my left hand over their right shoulder, a tug and a move where their head will, boom, actually snap down. Get that head sloshing a little bit, which will give them a little bit more hypnotic effect. And then I'll use the laughing bit as a fractionation device, which will deepen them even further. So I'll say
fractionation. Can you define the term? I'm sorry.
Okay. So in other words, it's almost like, you want to try to go higher. So you'll try to go low and then force it up and force it up and keep on forcing it. All right. So every time you get the hypnotic subject doing something that works, it's going to drive them deeper into hypnosis.
Okay.
So in the beginning, it might be something like you can't open your eyes. Well, how do you try to open your eyes? The more locked they become. All right. And I'll use like an auditory anchor, like a snap. Right. I always use like an auditory anchor because you learn by seeing, hearing, and touching. And if they can't see me, right, or I can't get to touching 20 people at the same time, like on a big show, they can always hear it. They can always hear the auditory anchor. So this is my auditory anchor, which always means yes. I actually have two. I have a pop, which means go deeper into hypnosis, and the snap, which means yes.
So the snap also, I mean, doesn't that bring back, things to childhood? I mean, how many parents can,
exactly.
Deep-seated?
Exactly. So it's something they understand right away. They understand that this means this is a very good yes command. And I condition them right in the beginning of the show that this will mean follow my directions easily.
Now, one more question. Is laughter, and this is for both of you, I got to get Chase in here too, but is laughter good to help with compliance? As in, it's like you're already laughing and you're kind of going along with that. Is that helping in that?
That's why I use that one first, because I like to use emotions first. Emotions, so emotions, sensory perceptions like hot and cold, all right, and then I do actions last. So I'll fractionate them with easy things. Like, in other words, I couldn't say, I hypnotize them real quick. At the count of 3, you can open your eyes. You're going to realize, that nobody in the room is wearing pants, right? That's a very low percentage move because they're not fractionated enough yet. Now, if I got a really killer subject and drove them down deep right away, you'll probably get away with it. But for the most part, I won't take that risk. So I'll do a laughing thing first because they're already feeling pretty good. Hypnosis feels good. Oh man, you saw a big smile on your face. In fact, you know what? You can't stop laughing. Everything's really funny. In fact, then I'll actually start making the noise myself In fact, you know what? Every time you hear people laugh, it makes you laugh even more. It becomes contagious. Then all of a sudden, now they start laughing, and now it gives permission for the audience to start laughing because they think you're supposed to be quiet during hypnosis. Now I'm coaching the subject, and I'm actually coaching the audience at the exact same time. The more laughing here, the more it makes you laugh. Oh man, it's getting really funny. Crowd starts laughing. They start laughing more because it's contagious. Now they say, man, how come I can't stop laughing? I must really be hypnotized. Oh man, I'm going deeper. And all of a sudden, yeah, all right, not funny anymore. And deep sleep and deeper. And it'll drive them down deep enough to go to another experiment, which I'll push them a little bit further. Okay. So every succession of material always drives them a little further down the rabbit hole.
And there's also the entertainment value that's an easy win for you, because if they're laughing, the audience is twice as likely to laugh too. And so you're kind of spooning them along before you can do the bigger stunts. You're doing nice, easy ones just to get everybody in.
Exactly.
You're priming them.
Exactly. Because I know what's coming next. I know I'm going to be destroying them with all kinds of crazy nonsense later on down the pike. But right now, my objective is to get every subject, or even just the one, if I'm working on TV or the radio, super deep, where I can make them do something really outrageous later on down the pike.
All right, Chase, jump in. You're not really doing stage as much, or not in the comedy sense. How do you work things?
I've never done stage hypnosis, but I think when someone talks about the laughter thing from a science perspective, we need 6 things to influence a person, and a minimum of 3. But the laughter gets 3 of those together, which is connection, openness, and vulnerability. So when you start laughing, especially hysterically, like at one of Rich's shows, those 3 things level up. You only need 3 of 6 to be very influential with another person. And hypnosis is one of those things where the less you really know about it, the more you think you know. So, I mean, we meet people who
I'm clueless.
Yeah, we meet people who really don't know much about it. They can't explain what it is, what part of the brain's affected, but they're never in doubt when they speak about it. I'm sure Rich has ran into hundreds of those people, more than I have. But I do think somebody had a super chat question about what Rich was saying and the relationship to PTSD.
Well, that's actually where I was going to go with you, as a matter of fact. So thanks for jumping on that. Because I was thinking what Rich was saying earlier about the light and the flash, and because you and I have both, I don't know how much combat. I didn't do a lot of combat, but I've been in field operations and stuff, and you can get into a zone when you're out there, especially if you're tired, you haven't slept, it's wet, you're marching, and you're kind of just going.
So there, what Rich was talking about, I absolutely agree with. But from a science perspective, what happens is, and the reason we're more vulnerable as kids to a lot of these things is because the brain is hyper tuned to pay attention to things that could hurt us, to get us old enough to reproduce. So until we're old enough to reproduce, the brain's trying to memorize as much as it possibly can about our environments.
Makes sense.
So when we have an event where there's an emotion, especially one where there's a negative emotion, there's a threat. And when I say threat, we view the IRS and a saber-toothed tiger the same way in our head. So we get the same kind of threat response.
Well, we have the same hardware from 100,000 years ago. I mean, we're playing with a lot of modern stuff with old equipment. Yeah.
So there's a threat, there's an emotion, and an event. So those things come together and say, I'm going to remember this. This isn't going to happen again. But it's especially impactful when a person is hyper-focused on what's going on. And the more threat is present, the more focus is also present, because our brain needs to pay attention to that stuff. So these permanent changes happen. So like, think about an 8-year-old who gets bullied, and then he grows up to be a total a-hole. He doesn't know, but that day, whenever he got bullied, there was a very quiet, silent decision that was permanent that said, no one's ever going to hurt me again. I will never be hurt again. So we have an emotion, an event, and then our brain sees this is a piece of evidence I'm going to use to say safe in the future. And that's where a lot of that stuff comes from. I will be safe in the future if I memorize this.
That makes total sense. And Do you agree with what I was saying though in the combat type situation or high stress situation, even as an adult? Because as a kid, obviously you're more imprintable, but you're I can't think of when you're more vulnerable than when you're actually in the field or in combat, and you're hyper aware at all times, and 90% of the time nothing happens.
Yeah. So I think when there is a potential for harm, your brain's trying to remember as much as it possibly can. So not just a threat, but a potential for threat tunes our brain up and says, I need to, it tunes up several parts of the brain, but one big one called the dorsomedial prefrontal cortex and the ventromedial. And those two things come together and little touch the hippocampus, which is where we store our memories, and say, we need all energy here. We need to put a lot of energy into the cortisol, which helps us to record memories. It's a stress chemical, but it says when there's a potential threat present, our hippocampal activity goes up. And that part of the brain is where we store our memories. So that says, I'm gonna store these memories, A, so I can protect myself in the future, and B, so I can go back to my village and tell my tribe how I got away from the tiger or how I survived.
That makes total sense. Now, Rich, one thing I notice is there's always not always, but it seems like some of the most popular hypnosis things are forgetfulness, and there's obviously the time loss from the start to the finish of a particular subject. Do these occur, like the forgetfulness, because they're so easy? In terms of, I think I do that to myself every 2 days, or even more frequently when it's like, what? 5 minutes just, time loss. 5 minutes just went by. What was I doing? I was in flow state or whatever it was. So we're constantly doing that, or we're just da da da, and then we just forget completely our name, even though we were about to say it, even without being hypnotized.
Yeah, well, on a show, 90% of the people remember none of the show at all. And some people think they remember, but then I always ask them, what do you remember? Well, I remember staring into the light, and it was like the first 30 seconds into the show. So they think they remember, but they really don't. And they have massive amount of time loss because you're getting them so deep. When you get them that level 6, they're almost going to an altered state of the brain. And they remember none of it, and you can ask them all kinds of questions. But if you say something like, hey, do you remember speaking Chinese? Then it's like remembering a dream. And then all of a sudden you can start having recollections of it. So I always tell people, when you interview a subject, always say, what do you remember? Don't say, do you remember doing this? And because you're altered. Now, if the subject is light, levels 1, 2, maybe even sometimes 3, they can remember most of it. So a lot of times, a hypnotherapist will have somebody hypnotized. They're going to get them to quit smoking or lose weight or whatever. Oh man, I don't know if I was really hypnotized. I heard the entire thing. Because we're super deep. If more hypnotists would start knocking guys out hard, where they're going down all like super deep, like on a show, you would never hear that. Well, yeah, I was really relaxed, but I don't know if I was really hypnotized. You would never hear that statement ever again.
Should they do that?
I like it better, because when I'm sure we're going to get to the topic about, can you hypnotize people against their will and making them do stuff they normally wouldn't do. I look at it like this. If you have a deep enough subject and make the story real enough, you can get the subject to do anything.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
So
Darren Brown has a career on it.
So let's get the subject super deep so we can get some really good work done fast.
How do you though? Okay, to push back on that, by keeping them light, where they're like, yeah, I remember I was just relaxed, nothing happened. Are hypnotists doing that so the patient, I don't know, you say client, patient, what you refer to them as, when they leave, they don't feel like they're taken advantage of? Because I'll be the first one to tell you, I will not be lining up for you to do that at all. I'm not going to say that Chase might have already done it for all I know. I've met him in person. He's a tricky guy, but I will not necessarily be jumping to do that. And I believe I've heard you in the interview say that nobody did that to you, but I think that may not be true anymore.
Yeah, well, actually, somebody tried to hypnotize me when I was younger, when I was a kid, and it worked almost immediately. And I was like instantly terrified. I woke up, I opened my eyes, I was like, whoa, 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 no, I'm not doing this, because it started working like, and I freaked out. That was when I was fairly young. I was probably like 12, 13 years old in that area.
Mhm.
And then the only time I've been really like super deep was with an audio program, actually. I listened to an audio program and it worked magnificently. And I was super deep then, where I had time loss. Those are the only times where I've had, where I was like real major experiences. Now I have had other experiences where I was on somebody else's stage and I thought I was faking the entire time, but I'm not going to ruin the guy's show. So I just went along, and that's what I figured I was doing. I think I was just going along. However, and this is before I was a hypnotist. This was like when I was like maybe like, I don't know, 20 something. All right. And so I'm not going to like, expose the guy, let the guy earn his living, let him have his show. And I went home that night. I remember telling my girlfriend, "Oh, this is all big crock." And I faked the entire time. He goes, "You did all that fake stuff?" Yeah, it was all faking, because I remember every bit of it. But now that I'm a pro, I realized that the symptoms I had the following couple of weeks was symptoms of being hypnotized.
Oh, wow. Well, okay, hold on. I got a question on that.
Definitely hypnotized, for sure.
Isn't there a psychological phenomenon? I'm going to push to Chase. I've got another one right back to you. That when you are under influence and you agree with something somebody says, that you'll say, "Oh, well, I meant to buy that," or "I meant it." You immediately, cognitively, to fight the cognitive dissonance, just come up with the reason why you did that. So it's like, no, I feel like taking my shirt off in the middle of the stage for no reason. It is just a little warm.
That's right. So what really happens is when you're under hypnosis, especially with people like Rich, he speaks in such a sensory manner and makes it communicate very well to the lower part of our brain. I'm not going to get into a neuroscience lesson here, but the lower part of our brain is unconscious, which means it's not knocked out, but it means it's not aware. It's not a conscious thinking, strategizing thing like we might think it is. But that is what makes most of our decisions. About 90% of our decisions are made by that lower part of the brain, and then the upper human part of the brain, the neocortex, the frontal cortex, that part of the brain takes the credit. So decision is made, credit is taken. And that's kind of how it works. And you ask somebody, let's say you go outside of a Target and some woman's walking out with a sweater and you say, "Hey, did you buy that because you saw it on the commercial a few weeks ago?" No one's going to say yes. Nobody's going to say they were ever influenced by a commercial. But if they didn't work, they wouldn't be $10 million a minute for the Super Bowl to advertise. So, I mean, that's just very effective on an emotional level. And it's okay. It's totally okay for us to say that we get unconsciously influenced on a very regular basis. That's how we survived as a species. That's the reason that none of your ancestors died a virgin, is because of that trait and a few others. Is we're make unconscious decisions very quickly, and that keeps us alive. So
is that what happened with Rich, though? What I'm saying, where he's like, yeah, I was playing along. Yeah.
Playing along. Because our sense of freedom kind of feels like it's going away if I say I did not make that decision. So even in extreme cases where people were made to do horrible things to other people in many experiments, they continued to reassert their own freedom of choice all the way to the end. And it wasn't like it was because of that. Well, I made a decision to do that. That was me. So
okay. And while we were talking about great decisions, Gavin Stone has contributed 10 pounds. And he told me earlier to say hi to both of you guys.
Hey, Gavin.
Yeah, Gavin's a great guy.
Yeah, he's fantastic guy. And thank you, Gavin. Gavin is an amazing support. Now I'm jumping back to Rich because I deliberately sidetracked, but I did not want to get off of the main subject, which is if you do have people going under hard, how do you make them feel comfortable after the appointment that especially if there's a male to female situation or something else, that nothing untoward happened? Because if they're completely blacked out, then they absolutely don't know what happened. How do they feel comfortable in what
Correct.
scenario?
So in this particular case, and I don't really do hypnotherapy live one-on-one sessions.
Right.
I do some over Zoom for extraordinary circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So, a professional athlete comes to me and says, I'm an ultimate fighter and I don't want to feel pain during this match. You have to shut the pain sensors off. Can you do that for me? Yes, no problem. And I can do that. But I don't do stop smoking, lose weight. So I want to leave that to the practitioners who want to make the money and do that type of thing. But if you're going to do one-on-one live, all right, I always tell people, you have to videotape every single session. Like I videotape every single show to have a record of it. Also, you should bring somebody with you to watch the session. All right. So now there's no hanky panky can go on. Nothing can happen. You have
unless you hypnotize both of them.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess.
No, I mean, technically, I know that Chase can do it, and I know you can do it.
Oh, Rich can do it.
So I mean,
I can do it very quickly. I guess that could happen.
And then that next question is a videotape. How do I know that I'm not hypnotized every time I watch the tape? Because I get tripped back. Have a third party do it. I'm serious.
That's a quagmire. That it really is. That's the question that is.
I have a fertile mind, as you can tell.
Oh, listen, and yeah, you can make some crazy stuff happen.
Oh,
yes, it's pretty wild out there. It's the Wild West. But yes, I would say have somebody in there watching over the whole thing live, and like I said, always videotape your sessions. Also, I like to videotape sessions for another reason. People don't realize that the wording, once a person's super deep on the hypnosis, the wording becomes that much more necessary to be precise. I always tell the hypnotherapists that I'm training also, be very mindful of the words. Don't just wing it. Where now you can wing the script if you have it memorized and you're doing especially a specialty type session. If you're really good at it, you can wing it. I can wing sessions, no problem. I've done it a long time. But don't be mailing it in with your presence there. So you're doing a script off the top of your head. You give them some information because you pre-interviewed them and you want to give them something special. But you say something and you say to yourself, "Whoop, wait a minute, that's not right," and you fix it right there on the spot.
Okay.
All right.
And do you have it on hand too? Like if later on you're like they're complaining about something, you go look and say, "Did I say something weird?"
Exactly. So now you can go back to the videotape and see where the situation happened. Like I can show you instances where people will say something and then now the person had to be put back into hypnosis again to take that out because it was said wrong.
Okay.
America's Got Talent is a very good example of that. When he told Howie not to sleep, he will not sleep. All right. I would bet that Howie probably had a problem going to sleep that night because the worded could have caused some issues.
And you know what, Rich? Can you really just a quick story about the woman on the cruise ship with her hands?
Oh, yeah.
That really illustrates it.
Yep. So I'm doing the show, and it's a massive cruise ship. There's 1,500, 2,000 people in the audience. And I do this hand locking thing, and then some people get their hands locked so that we can bring them up onto the stage, and it's very theatrical. So I'm doing the show, and this woman in the upper deck had her hands locked the entire show, couldn't unlock them. So now I'm finishing the show. The husband comes down and says, "My wife can't unlock her hands," and that happens every so often. I point to the hands, boom, release, hands unlock, piece of cake, it's done. All right. This woman would not unlock her hands for any reason, and all of a sudden I'm like, release. You're not releasing. Okay. Let's put it back into hypnosis. At the count of 5, you're going to come out of hypnosis. You'll be able to release your hands very easily. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Release. Nothing. She's still locked up.
What the hell?
So now I have to do another show. I basically spend a half hour with her trying to unlock these hands. They will not unlock.
That had to be scary for you. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's getting to be a little precarious now. So now I have to do the other show. I do the second show. She's locked up the entire second show. Right. So now I figured I don't see her anymore. The husband's gone. Second show is done. I go up on Lido deck. I'm having some buffet. All right. So now I'm chewing down. Cruise director comes up and says, "Hey, that woman's still locked." I said, "It's impossible." "Oh, she's down in the infirmary." I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." Now she's locked up for a good 3-4 hours.
Wow.
I go down and the doctor is like terrified. Doctor goes to me like this. He goes, "Listen," he goes, "her husband is a nice guy. And the woman, I think she's a little crazy. She won't, I even tried to sedate her, right? Nothing. She's not unlocking these hands." So I go up, I start talking to her, and I said, I tried to hypnotize her again. She's not having any part of it. She's like locked up, and she's an older woman too. And her hands are turning white. So I said, "If you can hear me, just blink your eyes." A couple of blinks. Okay, good. And now it came to me, there's got to be something with the hands of why she's not unlocking. So I said, "Do you normally take pain medication?" And she goes, 2 blinks for yes. Yes. "Does it have to do with your hands?" 2 blinks. Yes. Okay. Now I know the problem. Hypnosis feels so good. And the reason why most hypnotic subjects don't want to come out is because it feels really, really good. So normally, if you tell a hypnotic subject, "Listen, if you don't come out of hypnosis, right, I'm going to make it where you can never be hypnotized ever again. I know this feels good." Kind of threatened them a little bit, right? So now I said, "I want you to come back now. It's been a good long time. Time for you to come out of hypnosis. And I promise we're going to do this again, make you feel really good again." And they'll pop out. So now I knew it had something to do with her hands. I said, "Now listen." I said, I work with Ultimate Fighters. I turn all the pain sensors off. All right. And here's the situation. How would you like it if I took the pain out of your hands for the rest of your life? Would that be worth it to you? And she goes, 2 blinks. Yes. I said, "However, here's the issue. If I do that, all right, if you hurt your hand, close it in a car door or something like that, you'll still hurt your hand. However, you won't feel the pain. But you know what? You're an older woman. You know not to touch hot stoves or close your hand in the car door. So as long as you're careful for the rest of your life, is that a risk that you're willing to take?" And she blinks 2 blinks. Yes. I said, "Please allow me to do my job. Let me take you out of hypnosis. I'm going to make it where the pain never goes in your hands ever again. All right. And you're going to feel fine for the rest of your life with no pain in the hand. You won't need pain medication any longer." 2 blinks. Here we go. She allowed me to put her back into hypnosis. At the count of 5, you're going to release your hands, and you can come out of hypnosis, feel amazing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Their hands immediately on release, and she started bawling, crying.
Wow.
She says, "I am so sorry for what I ruined your night, didn't I?" I said, "Yeah, you kind of actually did. But you know what? I said, "It was worth it if this worked. How does your hands feel?" She says, "My hands," she said she had like terrible arthritis in her hands. She said, "I have to take so much pain medication and my hands are always aching all day long, even with the medication." She says,
Wow.
"My hands feel like I'm a teenager. Like I'm a teenager. I feel fantastic." I said, "Okay, so you ruined my night. However, is it worth it?" She says, "I feel amazing." She started hugging and kissing me, and that was it. The story ended happily ever after. All right. But that was the most difficult one I've ever had to do.
Check this out in the chat. My hands locked at a hypnotist show years back, 30 plus years ago. That wouldn't be her, I hope.
No, this was probably about 15 years ago when this happened.
Okay. I figured as much.
Yeah, but yeah, it can the hands lock in the audience all the time. But this is the first time I had it where it was like hours where she wouldn't release. But she associated in her mind the releasing of the hands with the pain coming back.
Which makes sense, sure.
Right now she's under hypnosis with no pain. You know what? I kind of like this, so I'm not going to release the hands. So
there's a certain logic to that.
Exactly. So as soon as I took the hands, the pain away, she says, "Okay, I'll release the hands then." So yeah, that's why I'm saying that with hypnosis, that Manchurian candidate type stuff happens when you get the subject super deep and make the story real enough. It's got to be somewhat plausible. Like in a joke, I mean, people tell a joke, oh, the zebra and the giraffe walk into the bar. I'm like, no, a zebra and giraffe's going to walk into the bar. But all of a sudden you start talking about it. It's like, that's almost plausible. Yeah, all right. What happens then? Well, the bartender says, hey, Mr. Giraffe, hey, you got a long neck. Right? As long as you make it kind of real, it's going to work.
Right. Well, if you change the world around them to where it starts to make sense in that current state or world, I'm guessing.
The story kind of is plausible.
And now I think Chase has said that you work with some anti-cult groups, and a cult, quote unquote, environment could be seen as changing reality around people to help modify behavior. Would that be a fair statement?
Give me that anti-cult groups. First I'm hearing about this one.
I don't know. Chase said he's working with some people who are helping people that are in cults.
Yeah, were you asking me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's an entire different discussion. That'd be an hour.
Okay. Well, just say yeah. Move on. That's cool.
I mean, a cult is essentially just taking out the social and belonging needs layer of the pyramid and sliding their own in to where there's not room for another one to really come in there. So once, they've got food, water, shelter, and they get up there, everything else that they need is derived from that layer in the Maslow pyramid.
Okay.
That's that's my bumper sticker.
No, which is cool. And Chase is going to be back, everybody, at some point. I guarantee we'll be digging down this path too. I want to go into the fatal four, as you've called it, Rich. And yeah. I know Chase can probably weigh in because and you might have a different term for it, but I think you talk about self-preservation, money, romance, recognition.
Correct.
And by the way, that I'm going to sidetrack real quickly. That's one thing I notice is, I don't know if it's your New York roots, but you can speak rapidly.
Yes.
Is that part of the induction too, in the sense that there's a degree of confusion trying to keep up with your words, and they're having to focus on your rattling, super fast speech.
Correct. So I got that because I used to take a lot of martial arts classes when I was younger, and I was the guy giving the drills. The instructor, for some reason, said, oh, you could talk pretty fast. You do the drills. So I got really good at talking fast and enunciating properly. And then when I went to acting school, my acting coach, Joanna Bexon, she used to have us listening to Frank Sinatra records and singing Frank Sinatra, where he enunciated the first letter and last letter of every word perfectly. So I tell people the best way to be able to talk quickly and enunciate well where they can understand you is do those Frank Sinatra exercises where you learn how to enunciate the first letter and last letter of each word perfectly, so you can talk very, very quickly and everybody can understand 100%, no problem. So, but yes, I use it as a technique to use a mental confusion, but also once you got the person hypnotized, their brain is ready to just soak up as much knowledge as you can as quickly as possible. So I could just rapid fire it in there and just really do my work. So it's kind of like when a car is driving by on the highway, like 60 miles an hour, the passenger side window's open. I say, take this baseball, throw it in the side window. So they throw it. Sometimes they hit the fender, the window, the door. Every once in a while, they get one in. Mm-hmm. But if you drive the car by like at 5 miles an hour, boom, you throw the ball in every time. When you slow it down, that's like being hypnotized. I'm slowing the brain down. Now I can I can rapid fire it. I can talk as fast as I want, and the information's all going to soak in there.
Well, that's perfect. Can you
even at 11 o'clock at night, standing just me and Rich hanging out in his kitchen, he's still at the same energy.
I know. I'm still talking fast. I've been doing it my entire life.
Well, you're not super fast right now. I mean, this is a perfectly, this is a fine pace. But I was going to say, would you mind demonstrating real quickly, like as if you were talking to somebody? Because you rattle it. You're like, yeah, you're laughing so hard, and it's like an auctioneer suddenly starts to slide in.
I'm going to count forward 1 to 3. When I count 3, you're going to open your eyes. You're going to stay in hypnosis. You actually go way deeper in hypnosis with your eyes open. If you understand, nod your head. Yes, excellent. Now at the count, when you open your eyes, you can realize the person sitting next to you smells absolutely magnificent. The most beautiful smell you've ever smelled. 1, 2, 3. Open your eyes. Man, they smell delicious. Wow, that's the most powerful, delicious smell you've ever smelled. Man, that actually smells even better now. Oh man, the person next to you smells even better. You want to smell all your favorite body parts. Man, that smells really good. Wow.
Perfect. And that gives an example, because even while you were talking here, yeah, you speak faster than normal, but I'm friends with Viva Fry, and he's a very quick speaker. But that that pace. And it was something that really stood out to me when I was watching you in the routines, how you would just go into that. And I thought there could be technique involved. So back to the Fatal Four.
Yes, the Fatal Four. Yes.
Sorry.
I like using the Fatal Four. Listen, Chase's technique is way better than mine. All right. He's got like 9. He's got like 9 areas, and it's very complex. It's
Rich has the Fatal Four. I have the Ocean's 11. I think.
Yeah, his stuff is premium. All right. Mine is light. But I like mine, for me personally, is because I could do it rapidly, very quickly, almost instantaneous.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the way I do it. All right, so the Fatal Four is self-preservation, money, romance, recognition. Those are the 4 things that people buy. We all have all 4, but there's one that's predominantly you. Usually a minor and a major, but there's one that's really subtly that person. So what I want to do is I want to decipher which one they are, and then start selling them that. So in a therapy situation, so let's say the person's going to get you to quit smoking, all right? Mm-hmm. And the headline item would be, oh man, when you quit smoking, you're going to be so much healthier. You're going to live longer. I'm selling them self-preservation. Mm-hmm. But if the person's not self-preservation, he might not quit smoking today.
Yeah, if they're 20.
What if
that would be part of it too?
Right. What if the guy's recognition? All right. What I should sell to him is like, and listen, guess you know how many millions of people try to quit smoking every year? They all fail. You're gonna be able to tell everybody, hey, I quit smoking like that, my friend. I'm the guy who did it. All right. So you want to give him bragging rights that he quit smoking. If the guy's romance, I would say, you know much more romantically attractive you're gonna be when you quit smoking, right? If the guy's money, the cigarette companies are making you a fool. They're taking thousands of dollars from you every year. So I give them what they want to be sold. And the exact same thing works with a hypnotic command or a sale. So I'm always using the Fatal Four on people all day long, every day.
How do you detect them? That's one thing I love is you've gone into some examples, but I'd love to have you share that.
Here's the technique I use to do it very rapidly. All right.
Okay.
So I always do it by process of elimination, and I eliminate money first. Of course, the money guy is very glaring. See, everybody thinks, oh, hey, he's money. Well, people want money for different things. Like the single mom might need money for food, clothing, and shelter, take care of her kids and her family. She's very concerned about her future, right? Where the recognition guy wants to buy, he wants money so he can buy stuff. Hey, look at me. All right. So they want different things. So the money guy is really a person who will do anything for the money, even if it's a little unscrupulous. Hey, man, I got this radio, fell off the truck. You want to buy it?
What are you gonna do?
I would never buy that radio. I'm like as straight laced as they come. I don't want no trouble. Keep your radio. I don't care if it's $10 and $1,000 radio. I don't want it. All right. Mm-hmm. But the money guy, he'll take it. All right. So I eliminate him first. So you find out, is the guy a little unscrupulous? Is he strictly only about the money? So I can eliminate him right away.
Well, you just met me. I mean, what would you ask me? I'm just saying, to figure it out, because you're running into people immediately. You haven't had a track record to go, oh, I see they're getting a little light on the tip there. Oh, they're pulling something on the side. How do you determine?
Well, I'm gonna explain that to you. All right. Well, so your recognition, by the way. All right. Okay. So all right. I'll tell you why I came to determine that in a second. So because after I eliminate money, I go to what I call the bookends, all right, which is self-preservation and recognition, right? So they're very similar, but they're actually polar opposites, all right? So I decide which one they are, and if I can concur with an extra piece of data, then I know that's right. But if they're neither, then I know it's romance. All right. So that's the way I do it very quickly. I can usually do it like with, they say, 15, 20 seconds, 30 seconds tops. And sometimes you could do it without even, saying a word. You could just look at the person. Mm-hmm. All right. So if they're either, like I said, either recognition or self-preservation, you add an extra piece of data. So let's say there's a nice looking woman. She's at a Starbucks. She's got the shoes match the handbag. She's drinking her tall latte. She's on her fancy cell phone. All right. And you look at her and you say, well, is she recognition? Is she money? So I could look at the handbag where it is and see exactly who she is. So is she holding the handbag over here while drinking her coffee? right? Or does she display the bag on top of the counter? If she's displaying the bag, I'm recognition. If I'm holding the bag, I'm self-preservation. So now I can determine very quickly what she is just by merely looking at her, just with some additional data points. And then if I was to go talk to her and she's recognition, I would say, man, those shoes and bag look magnificent together. Where did you go? All right. And all of a sudden, bang, she's in the game.
Okay. And Chase is recognition as well, right?
Chase is, I think, is a recognition guy. Although he's, I don't know, romance too. He's pretty romantic. Yeah, he's romance. Chase is romance.
Okay. I'm sure a lot of people will be happy to hear that about Tan Daddy.
Yep.
I'll have to bring my girlfriend on next time.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I look at everything as a sale. You know, you're always selling. You know, you're selling a concept, you're selling an idea, you're selling a product, you're selling a service, right? You're selling something. So when you know how to sell the right thing to the person individually, your numbers are going to go up dramatically. Because
okay, now but I'm sorry, I did want to know, because I don't think it's necessarily easy in my mind to tell if somebody's about money. I was trying to figure out what might be an outward sign immediately to see that.
Well, you would the money. I would ask a question. You know, if you couldn't decipher it, you'd ask a question and see what if you can get it out of them. So the money guy he's very it's a glaring thing if he's money or not.
Okay.
Is he is he a little on the shady side, or is he not?
Is it like that Justison that you can't describe it, but you know it when you see it?
You tell by looking at him. All right, you could tell a little shady. He's probably the money guy. In other words, he'll do anything for that cash. Doesn't make a difference what it is.
Okay, fair enough. And this is jumping back a little bit, but I did think it's interesting. Helen Merchant asks, please help me quit smoking for good. I can do it, but there's always a trigger that starts me again. What could that be? And I thought that would be something that you could probably, both you could help address.
Yeah. Well,
why they don't stick.
Well, the way I would attack that, so something triggers her. So, you know, here's the thing: what happens in your mind. So you're having a cup of coffee. I'm having a cigarette. All right. I'm having a delicious meal. I had a cigarette. Just had great sex. Boom. Had a cigarette. Oh, or my friend just. I can't believe she said that to me. Man, you're my only friend. Cigarette. All right. It becomes a trusted friend. And what I tell people when I do a smoking session, you should put parameters in there where they can't trip up. So in other words, people are very ritualistic. If we put a videotape of you getting into your car every day, you would do the exact same routine every time. You open the door, you close the door, right? Start the car, turn the air conditioner on, the radio. Right? It's the exact same routine every time. So I would tell people, you know what? Climb through the passenger side door. It breaks the pattern, and boom, they wouldn't do that every day. What hand do you drink with? Well, I'm right hand. I always drink my right hand. I'm smoking with my left. Well, like this now. All of a sudden.
Okay, so when I quit in 2005, because I used to always, if I was step foot outdoors, I would smoke because I wasn't allowed to smoke in the house. So first thing was that we weren't allowing smoking in the house. Then after I quit smoking, I avoided going outdoors at all costs for like a month.
Right. So with the hypnotist,
did that help in that?
Yeah, exactly. So what the hypnotist should have did, is during the interview process, you would say, I would find out that nugget of information. And in fact, when you go outside, that fresh air is going to be so good to you. You cannot wait to go outside and take in that deep breath of fresh air. In fact, those deep breath breaks make you feel so magnificent. And all the bad habits you had in the past are so ridiculous compared to this new habit of breathing in all this beautiful fresh air outside.
Nice.
And all of a sudden now I've replaced one good habit and got rid of the old habit.
That's right. And I'll go into the neuroscience for just 60 seconds on how that works. Right around here, if you put your fingers there, just in front of the top part of your ear where it connects to your head, there's a small part of the brain, tiny. It's like the size of a peanut. It's called the nucleus accumbens. And it's part of a dopamine pathway called the ventral tegmental area. And this entire thing is what memorizes what felt good. So all these things that felt good, and the nucleus accumbens says, I'm gonna look out for opportunities to do that again.
Hmm.
So the more we can disrupt a pattern, like Rich said, we're disrupting and changing patterns. You want to wake up earlier in the morning. You want to stop chewing tobacco. I chewed chewing tobacco in the military for a long time. But you want to do any of that stuff, you have to make a major disruption. So put the coffee maker in a different area, brush your teeth with your left hand, get in the other side of the door, wake up at a different time, go out, take all the money you would have spent on cigarettes, get a new wardrobe. So every time you look in the mirror, there's something that is unfamiliar to the previous script that your brain has written for how you're supposed to live. So the more disruption that you can cause in a good way, I mean, we can have a positive disruption, but the more you can cause, the more your brain is going to say, this is new. I'm going to pay attention and I'm going to learn about this.
Sounds awesome. Before we go, because we're running into time here, love both of you because you're both teaching it. First, I have one question, and then second, we'll talk about what you're teaching and the it factor. But my question before that is somebody very early on in the chat asked if charisma was a form of hypnosis, which I thought was interesting. If charisma is like a persuasion.
Charisma is actually charm plus power.
Mm-hmm.
So, like a bum could be very charming. Hey, how you doing, man? He's got the shuck and jive going on. Hey, let me right. And all of a sudden he's looking for something in return, obviously, right? But so charm plus a powerful position will give you true charisma. And then, and like we like to add the trifecta. Chase's thing was like,
Have
where
your shit together.
Well, no, don't talk down to the person, even though you're more powerful than them, don't talk down to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love that concept, which really gave you the trifecta. So now your charisma, and even more now, it's really incredible. So yeah, that's the way I would describe charisma. But hypnosis, right, is I look at hypnosis as a delivery system, a better delivery system.
Mm-hmm.
I don't look at it as like, like the therapy itself and the wording that you put in there to get to get people better or make them do something
mm-hmm.
is a side effect that you do once you've hypnotized them. I consider hypnosis nothing more than the syringe to put the medicine in. It's a better delivery system. That's the way I look at it personally.
And it's
so
the same
method
thing
like
with,
CBT or something else.
Well, some people say hypnosis is dangerous. Well, a kitchen knife is dangerous, but it's also very helpful. And if we look at a psychological therapy called aversion therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy, if you stick those together, that's the step-by-step exact process for brainwashing. That's brainwashing. Mm-hmm. But we're taking that and giving it to a doctor and saying, here, use this. You can use it for the same thing. All it does is create a behavior that would not have normally occurred. That's it. And in some cases, that behavior might be getting up earlier or not having any depression or removing the emotional significance of a traumatic event. So a lot of that stuff can be used for bad and can be used for good, much like pretty much anything. A bar stool is anything you can think of can be used for a bad purpose.
True. Well, you know what? That's a perfect point to leave out on. Hypnotize responsibly.
Yes. It's a huge responsibility, having that type of power. It's probably the closest thing you can have to having a superpower as a human.
Yeah.
Especially when you're good.
Yeah, when you're good. It's incredible what you can do. I've been thrown into so many such scenarios, and Chase too. Adverse conditions where you have to hypnotize them. People who don't want to be hypnotized, and you still got to do it.
Somebody gave me 60 seconds one time to hypnotize Rich.
Yeah, I think I saw that on video.
Yep. And I'm a tough subject. That's not easy.
Well, perfect. Richguzzi.com would be the best place to.
Actually, hypnosisworld.com.
Oh, okay. Hypnosisworld.com. I know there's some Chase stuff there too, but there's also chasehughes.com. And I think Chase has written a couple books.
Give or take.
So definitely look up the name Chase Hughes on Amazon. We're not even going to name books anymore because there's so many. It's like, go get the Chase Hughes catalog. And Rich has a book himself, Performing Hypnosis,
Fabulous.
that you can find on Amazon too. Now, folks, thank you so much. And everybody, if you like this kind of guests, please consider liking first off and maybe subscribe. That way you can be notified when somebody comes back on again.